Hello everyone, this is Shubham Divakar over here and I welcome you all to this Lead Code Daily Monthly Challenges solution series wherein we solve daily challenges of the Lead Coding Challenge. Alright, so moving ahead to the question that we have today is unique binary search trees, okay? And the question is, given n, how many structurally unique BSTs that store values 1 to n are possible? So basically this question is all about given an input n number of keys, you need to find how many unique BSTs you can build out of it. Given n equal to 3, we can build 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 unique BSTs. Now the question I would also be solving it using this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for different values of n. So let's move ahead to the solution part, but before I begin solving this problem and explaining the solution, I would like to tell you that the way I would be solving the question is would be the method would be dynamic programming, but I would teach you how you all can code your way, find a solution, like find a general recurrence or a recursive method from a question, and from how you can convert that recursive method into the DP. So converting a recursive solution into a DP is a very unique trick, and I do not find it in many videos, so I'm very much excited to share that important trick with you all. And trust me, it's very easy, but once you know the concept and how we do it. So let's move ahead to the explanation part. Given n equal to 3, there are 5 BSTs. So let's try to figure out what those BSTs are and how we will code it, or how we will find the solution. So at first, this would be n, alright, and here I would be writing number of BSTs, unique BSTs basically possible for given n. For n equal to 1, I have one BST possible, and let's say the element is 1, so I can take only 1 as the root. But for n equal to 2, wherein I have two elements 1 comma 2, the number of BSTs possible would be 1, take 1 as a root and then 2 as a subroot, 2 as a subtree, or taking 2 as a root and then 1 would go over here. So basically there are two ways of solving this. Okay, so and for we have two BSTs, two unique BSTs over here. Now coming to n equal to 3, and I have 1 comma 2 comma 3. So how many elements we have? 3. So now let's start from 1. So let's take first 1 as the root. If I take 1 as the root, I would have 2. Okay, I would have 2 and 3, two elements on the right side. Alright, and how we can arrange these two elements is that let's first take 2. So if 2 comes in, then 3 would come. This is one way. Or we can have 3 over here and then a 2 over here. All right, so these are the two ways when you can have 1 as the root. Now if I try to take 2 as a root, there is only one way, 1 on the left and 3 on the right. But if I have 3, then again I will be having, okay, again I will be having only one way, I mean two ways generally, two elements on the left side, so again two ways. So now how can we code it? Like let's say we take only one, like 1, so 2 would lie somewhere here. But if we try and take 2 over here, then 1 would lie over here. So how many unique BSTs are possible? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Like this is for 1, 2 only. How many unique BSTs possible? 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. So I'll erase all because I need to draw for n equal to 4. So to keep a check, and for n equal to 3, we have 5 BSTs. So let's go back to the question and check whether the answer is correct or not. Yes, for n equal to 3, we have 5 BSTs possible. So now going ahead, for n equal to 4, I have 1, 2, 3 and a 4 over here. So if I take 1, then on the right side I would have 2, 3 and 4. So 3 elements. So let's first take 2, 2, 3 and 4. Now see, up until here we had solved and we did not take the help of the previous one. But if you can see, for each of every element, for 2 also we utilized 1, for 3 we utilized 2. Similarly for 4 I will utilize 3. Now how I will utilize it? For taking 1 as the root, I have 3 elements over here, and for n equal to 3, like for n equal to 3, we already know that we have 5 BSTs. So I'll simply write 5 over here, and I will not figure out the exact BST. Now for n equal to 2, I mean for now this taking 2 as the root, now taking 2 as a root, we have 1 on the left side, and then again 3 and 4 on the right side. So basically we are now using two things. One, for n equal to 1 we will have 1 BST, unique BST, into we have two elements over here. So for n equal to 2 we have two unique BSTs. 1 into 2, that is 2, so 5 plus 2, that is 7. Now for n equal to 3, we again have two ways, both the left and the right part. We have two elements over here, one elements over here. So that would be 2 into 1. Now how we got it? Because we have one element over here, 4. So for n equal to 1, we have 1 BST. See, we are not concerned with 4. We are concerned with that we have only one element over here. And for one element, we can have only one unique BST. Similarly, for this part, for 1 comma 2, we have two elements over here. So we can have two unique BSTs. So 2 into 1, that will yield 2. Now taking 4 as the last element as the root, we can have only the left part, and that too we can have 1 comma 2 comma 3. All right, so and we have three elements. So for n equal to 3 we have 5. So we had 5, we had to 7, 7 and 5 is 12, 12 and this 2 is 14. Okay, all right, we got this. So now let's roll back to 4 only and start seeing what exactly and how exactly we figured it out, so that I can get you a recurrence relation, a relation out of it, so that we can code it away in recursive solution first, and then we will code it into DP. So I'll not write the numbers, I'll erase these numbers. Okay, so issue. Okay, so this is correct. This should not be. I'll erase these parts. Yeah, so we have, okay, cool. Now starting with 1 only. So on the 1, for 1 on the right part we had three elements, so that was basically nothing but f of 3. If I put a f over here and say this function n takes values and it returns me unique BST, so f of 3 was giving me 5. All right, so that is why I had 5. But if you see, we on the right, on the left part we had 0, no elements. So can't we say that we had f of 0 over here? Now since we can see this is a Catalan number series, and for Catalan number series we know that for n equal to 0 we have 1, so I'm taking that assumption and then trying to solve it. For f equal to 0, like this we can also say that we have 1 over here, like 1 into f of 3, and 1 can be replaced with this f of 0, because we know for n equal to 0 we have 1 in the series. So I replace this one with this f of 0, so we have f of 0 into f of 3. Now for this 1 we have f of 1, because 1 can be arranged only one way, and then this 4 and 3 is f of 2. Now for this 1 and 2 we have f of 2, and for 4 we have f of 1. Now for f of 1 2 3 we have three elements, so f of 3. I don't know how many of you noticed, but yeah, we'll have again f of 0 over here, because we have no elements over here, so 1. I mean, only this can be done in only one. I mean, f of right, you write f of 3 or you write f of 3 into 1, doesn't make sense. I mean, both of them are same, similar. Yeah, so if you, I don't know how many of you observed it, but we have a series. See, f of 0 into f of 3, f of 3 can be written as n minus 1, because n was 4, so 4 minus 1 is 3. 2 can be written as n minus 2, for 1, and this was f of 0, so f of n minus n over here, right? So if I wanted to write a recurrence relation for f of, and this f of 0, f of this now, and this was in the series f of 0 into f of n minus 1, now this becomes in that form, f of 1 into f of n minus 2, f of 2 into f of n minus 3, and f of 3 into f of 0. All right, so we can see there is a relation, I mean there is a series going on over here, and we can then code it out. Now you can see here itself that we had to call this f of 3 once here, then we also had to call f of 3 over here, so we had to call f of 3 two times. Now think, if we are writing a recursive code, we are calling f of 3 twice, so that is doing nothing but increasing the calculations or the computations. Okay, so this is not doing anything. If we store, like in this case, since we had stored this 5 over here, so if we store this somewhere and then utilize this, and then why not, and then for every f of 3 we just simply for the every calculated f of 3 we can simply call and use it, so that will reduce our computations. And that is what we do in dynamic program. We do not compute again and again, rather we store it in a table. So the reason why we will use dp over here is because we can see f of 3 has been repeated twice, f of 2 comes twice. Okay, so basically these are the repetitions, so that is why we'll switch to dp. But I'll first write a recursive code, but before that we need to write the recurrence relation. I mean the relation that is generalized. So f of n is nothing but f of 0 into f of n minus 1 plus f of 1 into f of n minus 2, and this goes on until f of n minus 1 into f of 0. So we can see we have f of 0, f of 1 up until f of n minus 1, and we have f of n minus 1, n minus 2 up to 0. So we have a series over here. So now let's write a dp based, no, look, first let's write a recursive solution for this. So and then we'll convert that to dp. So we'll keep this relation as it is, and we'll code and we'll remove the other parts, and I will code here the recursive solution using this relation that I have figured it out, and then we'll see what we can do. And remember, if in the recursive solution we do not store anything, rather we simply call again and again, and we'll see what exactly is happening. So let's start writing. Let's say I have a function fun, all right, which takes int n. Now why I'm writing here, because uh, I want to do changes and show how we transform this into dp, and we'll do it on the right side. All right, so if okay, so okay, tab, all right, tab won't work over here. So if I have to put it everywhere here only, so if n is equal to 0 or n is equal to 1, this function, yeah, this function will be returning something, so it would be int fun. So I would be writing return 1, because for n equal to 1 and 0 we know we want 1. And then moving ahead for the series, so as we can see, what we have is let's take a variable s for storing this sum. Yeah, for this we'll start from int. Let's take a variable j equal to 0, j is less than n, j plus plus, and we will have s is equal to s plus. Now what do we have here? We have first f of 0, then we have f of n minus 1. So f of 0 is nothing but this 0 I would be replacing. What I have done over here is, how I'm coding this part over here is, I have done nothing. I have simply replaced this 0 with a variable j, because this is running from 0 up until n minus 1. So all this have been reduced to j. And what is this n minus 1 I have over here, right? So I can simply say this is nothing but n minus 1 minus j, because j is 0, so it could be 1 minus 1. Then n minus 2 I have over here, so I'll again write n minus, now here j is 1, so instead of writing n minus 2 I can do this n minus 1 minus 1, and j is also 1, so I'll I replaced n minus 2 with n minus 1 minus 1. Okay, and now since j was also 1, so I'll now replace this 1 with a j. So we have n minus 1 minus j, and that follows for the entire sequence. So doing the same thing, I had s is equal to s plus f of s plus this function. Okay. Oh shit, the entire code went. Like I need to code again. No worries. System will code faster. Int fun int n, and then the base case condition I had, which was int, I mean, if n is equal to 0, or I'll simply say if n is less than equal to 0, I mean less than equal to 1, not 0, then I will return 1. Now the main coding part, int s is equal to 0. Now how I figured it out that this is recursion, because we had f of n minus 1 being used again and again. We have n minus 1 over here, then we have n minus 1 over here, so we will be calling the functions twice, and that is what makes recursive programs much more complex. I mean much more computations make, I mean, recursion problems require much more computation. So if we store this somewhere, then it would be really of great help, because because then we would be reducing the number of calculations. So I would run a j loop because I had replaced these parts with j. So j would run from 0 to j run from less than n, j plus plus, and s would be nothing but s plus fun. We call the function n function of j into function of n minus 1 minus j. So cool, we have coded this part, and then in the last we need to return n. So I guess it's more or no, not n but rather s, because s would be containing the entire sum. So I guess we have almost at the end of the recursive solution. Yeah. So now how I will convert this to dp and y. You can see this, we have f of j, so we have f of n minus 1 minus j, and from here we could clearly see that this f of j also occur at this end, f of n minus 1 occurred this part, and similarly these every element occurs in the initial part and then in the final part. We could easily clearly see. Okay, like for example we had f of 4 over 4, and for which we clearly saw that f of 2 was repeating twice, f of 3 was also repeating twice. So why not store them somewhere? So how I will convert this recursive solution into a dp solution. All right, so let's start seeing what are the things we need to remove and how I will code my way out. Now this is a very important thing, important trick. Okay, so let's code our way out. Now I would be using a red marker. Yeah, cool. So now moving ahead for the changing part. So what are the things that we need to replace? So the first thing that we need to look upon for changing the recursive code into dp is what part is repeating everywhere. Since we can clearly see this this fun j, like this fun j part is repeating everywhere, this 1 and minus 1 minus j part is repeating everywhere. So we need to store something, like we need to store this fun j and fun n minus 1 minus j somewhere, like in a 2d table or in a 1d array. All right, so what we will do is we will replace these two with a table. We'll replace two with an array, maybe 1d, maybe 2d. Now we need to figure what we need to do exactly. Now first let's check. Now first let's think like what exactly is happening in the code. Like for given n equal to 1, we have for n equal to 1 this entire loop runs. Okay, for n equal to 2 this entire thing runs. For n equal to 3 also this will run. All right, so the thing what I want to tell you is that how we identify which parts we need to remove and which part is iterative. See, if you see, we have constant n over here. All right. So and what was happening over is that we can see this j loop is running from 0 to n. All right, and we can also see here for every n, like for n equal to 4, we could clearly see like this n is going from 0 to n minus 1. I mean 0 up until less than n, that is n minus 1 only. So why not do that here also? We will replace this n with a variable or with a loop. I would say no, we will first replace this variable. Wherever we have n, we'll replace this with I. And I would run from 0 up until less than n or n minus 1, equal to less than n minus 1 and up until n. So wherever we have n, we'll simply replace this with I. Now why we replace this with I? Because this function will run this function. Inside this function we will put we'll be giving several values, and for every n equal to 4, this entire code will iterate from 0 to less than 4, which means from 0 to 3, and this j part, this would be calling this function again and again 4 times. All right, so we will not have n, like in this n, for n equal to 4, we will have we would be getting fun1, fun2, like since we have 0, so fun0, fun1, fun2, fun3. All right, so instead of n, if we put I, and if we say that this I loop is running from 0 to n, then it would not be less than n or 0 to n minus 1, then we would not be wrong, because this fun j is nothing but 0 to n. All right, less than n or 0 to n minus 1 for each and for whatever n you put in. So ultimately this loop itself run for n minus 1 time. So what I am doing is I will be replacing this n with I over here. So whatever n we have, will replace this I, because ultimately we are iterating over here. All right, now the next important thing, we replace this n with I over here in all the cases. Now we can see this s is not specific s, right? Like if you say for n equal to 1, this is s1, for n equal to 2, this is s2, for n equal to 3, this is s3, for n equal to 4, this is s4. So this is also changing. All right, because this s is not constant, and what this function is doing, basically it is returning s1 for n equal to 1, s2 for n equal to 2, s3 for n equal to 3. All right, we can see this is also changing now. So what I am thinking about this, since we already have figured out like which part we need to remove, because we replace this n with I, so once, so we can say that this entire recursive function is having a for loop at first, which is running from 0 to n minus 1, and inside this part we have this part over here. All right, so we'll put this part over here. Now this part is this part. All right, but one thing that we can easily see, we are calculating, I mean we are calling fun j every time. All right, fun0, fun1, fun2. Why don't we store it in a somewhere like 1d array, 2d array? And now what to use, 1d array or a 2d array? So since we have replaced only one variable, so we would be using a 1d array over here. All right, and what would be the size? The size would be n over here. All right, because we have replaced it, because we are running a loop, and we would be requiring all the values for every, and we would be requiring all the values for every other value. Like for n equal to 4, you require n equal to 1, 2, 3. So we would be requiring a dp now. Like what I will do is, I'll replace this fun j, like this fun, with a dp array. Now what this dp array is, this dp is a 1d array of size n, but in our case we will take n plus 1, because we also want to take care of n equal to 0. All right, so we will be taking a, and in general this is what we do, we take a dp array of size n plus 1, and then we initialize it. Just hold on. Okay, cool, it's recording. Moving ahead, so now the code will look something like this. What we did is, we found out which variable is iterative. Like we have n, this n is iterative because this is running from I equal to 0 to n, so we replace this with a for loop. And we recall that we, this fun part is calling, this fun is being called several times, so we replace this with a dp, and we'll replace this with, not with dp, we'll replace with dp of j, into dp of I minus 1 minus j. Why I minus n minus why I minus 1 minus j? Because we replaced n with 1, we replaced n with I, so that the fun will be replaced with dp over here. And the code that we would be having would be exactly the same thing that I am writing now, and this is for dp. This is a dynamic programming solution, dp solution. So again, int fun int n. Now this is dp, so int fun dp. I guess more or less the idea is clarified, like how we convert a recursive solution to a dp solution. And now we need to code, like we need to initialize first the dp array. So dp is equal to new int. Yeah, we would be doing n plus 1 over here. dp of 0 would be 1, dp of 1, I will not be putting a syntax as well. dp of 1 would be 1. Now we need to compute for, and we will simply, you will be seeing that we are doing nothing. We have just replaced some of the things with variables I and with dp, and rest all code will remain the same. And yeah, and we would be storing the entire value in the dp table, and that dp of n would be storing the last value, I mean the value of the value that we want, dp of n would be storing. So inside this I would be initializing dp of I equal to 0. Okay, first the dp I loop now. So int I would start from 2, because we already have a 0 and 1, so we do not need to focus on that. And then I would run from I less than n, I plus plus, int j equal to 1. Lot of people will tell you like you do memoization, but nobody is going to explain you this way, like which variables we need to replace and what exactly we need to do. Because once you get an idea like what you want to replace and how you want to replace, then you can clearly understand memoization and every other thing. So that is the only trick that is here. So now moving on, so j would run from 0, j would run from 0 to, yeah. So now how up until where this j loop should run, that also we need to take care. Like see, we replaced j equal to 0, j was running from j equal to 0 to j less than n, but we replace n with I. So the same thing that I would write over here, nothing else. And inside that I had told you that I would be replacing this s and fun with dp, because we need to store this. So dp of I plus or equal to, which means dp of I is equal to dp of I plus. Now what we need to write, so I had told you the value would be stored in fun of j. So instead of fun we would write dp and then j into, this is the right part and this is the left part of the tree for a particular I. And then here we had replaced n with I, so it would be I minus 1 minus j. Okay, I minus 1 minus j, and you will see that this code works like a charm and there is no issue with the code. Basically my sole motive was to demonstrate you how we convert a recursive solution into a dp solution, and you can see there is hardly any code difference. The only thing is we added this extra loop, which we figured out how we need to do by replacing this n with I, and then what we need to store, that also we figured it out from here, like this fun j and fun n minus 1 1 minus j was being called every time, so we replace this fun with dp. And this s part is useless over here, so we need to store this value. We always wanted to store this value. So basically this s was nothing but sum1 sum2 sum3. So basically we want the dp table to be storing the sum1 sum2 sum3. So we can also replace this s1 with dp1 dp2 dp3, and that would be nothing but dp of I itself. So this is a code. Now let's see and let's code our way out, and let's see our code how it works, and whether it works or not. Yeah, that would definitely work. And I guess the solution was more or less clear to you guys. And if you try to do this trick with a 0 1 knapsack problem and many other problems, I have tried this. First you need to write the recursive code, and then you go on and solve the convert that into a DP solution. So we always do that, that's a standard procedure, but how we do that is a different thing, and that is what I demonstrated in this video. And just the coding part is left. So int I equal to 0, I is less than n, I plus plus, so it would be n equal to 2 because we already have taken care of those two parts, and dp of I will always be 0 in the initial part. J equal to 0, j was less than I, and then dp of I plus is equal to dp of, okay, into dp of, okay, so what it was dp of j into dp of I minus 1 minus j. I guess that was the one we figured it out, dp of j into dp of 1 minus 1 minus I minus 1 minus j. Yeah, so it's done. Let's compile and check. First let's just run and check. Okay, your answer is 0, expected answer is 5. We need to check like what went wrong. I started from here. Okay, I guess this should be, well, yeah, let's check. I think that is the issue. The last part was not being calculated. Yeah, so we need to run up until I less than equal to j because this is n plus 1 over here. Yeah, so this is accepted. So guys, thank you for watching, and this was a very interesting question to deal with, and I hope you all enjoyed this video, and I will be posting the solutions to these 0 1 knapsack problems and how to convert this recursive solution into DP solution again. And feel free to comment, and the link to the question will be in the description, and I would love to hear from you. Yeah, thank you all. Thank you.